Welcome to Nice and Blunt Week 14 Fantasy Football Rankings. It's the playoffs. That means it's a must-win for you to advance. And this week matters more than all the previous ones. So congrats if you made it this far. If you're watching and you're in the playoffs, then I tip my hat to you. I'm also in the playoffs, hoping to move on to the semifinals. And good luck. My name is Adam Riancho, if I haven't introduced myself already. And this is my channel, Nice and Blunt. So far, I'm doing fantasy football rankings. And if you'd like more of this content, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell so that you're notified for my content and it will come to you instead of you having to find it. So with that said, this video is going to be about wide receiver rankings. And let's jump in. It's week 14, and number 1, I've got Davante Adams versus Detroit. Number 2, Tyreek Hill at Miami. The two elite options. They won't slide any further down the list for me. Next up, Keenan Allen versus Atlanta. Just a great matchup, and he was kind of shut down last week against Bill Belichick. I think they're going to want to turn that around and get Keenan Allen the ball as much as possible against a weak Atlanta secondary. Number 4, DK Metcalf versus the Jets. This should be a blowout for Seattle. They're coming off a bit of an upset loss against the Giants, and DK Metcalf is basically unguardable, especially against the Jets defense. Although now that Greg Williams isn't the coordinator, they might not be terrible on play calls, at least not as terrible. They're still the Jets. Number 5, DeAndre Hopkins versus he's at the Giants. He's on the road. Normally, DeAndre Hopkins would be higher, but it's going up against James Bradbury, one of the best corners in the league this season. The Giants' defense seems to have turned a bit of a corner recently and is playing very good football. They did just shut out Russell Wilson and the Seahawks basically last week. So it's possible they do something like that again against Arizona, but obviously Kyler Murray's favorite option is going to get plenty of targets, so DeAndre Hopkins is still a top 5 wide receiver. Next up, I'm really high on Justin Jefferson at Tampa Bay. Their secondary has been terrible recently. Maybe they looked at that film during the bye and changed some things up, but if they continue to play zone, they're just terrible after the catch, and Justin Jefferson can rattle off big play after big play. He's very hard to tackle. If he gets a ball in the open field, it's almost to the house every single time. So I love Justin Jefferson this week. I think it's going to be a bit of a shootout in Tampa Bay, and they're going to need to move the ball. Tampa Bay has an elite run defense, so Dalvin Cook may be stymied and stopped a bit early, which will force them to throw the ball a bit more. Next up, I got Stephon Diggs. If Julio Jones is healthy enough to play, then I would have him here at 7, but so far that doesn't look that likely, so I won't mention him anymore. A bit of a tough matchup against Pittsburgh. I think they're going to be extra motivated after that first loss against Washington. I think they were kind of looking ahead to this matchup against Pittsburgh, and I think they're going to want to try and shut down Stephon Diggs as much as possible. He's their number 1 option, and I still really trust him. He's at number 7, but Diggs may have a bit of a tough time this week. Terry McLaurin at San Francisco comes in at number 8. He had a bad game for his standards. Excuse me. Against Pittsburgh last week, but they won. They didn't need him to have a great game in order to win. 2 catches, 14 yards, I believe, was the stat line for him. Not very good, but he's been so reliable and so steady all season long. I think you can forgive it. I think Terry is still a top 10 option, and his average catch is at least 18 yards. His yards after the catch are great. He's on pace for one of the highest receiving marks among all wide receivers for his first 2 seasons. That kind of goes under the radar. His touchdowns aren't really there, especially with Alex Smith at quarterback. But I think this week is kind of a get-right game after last week's down matchup. So I like Terry McLaurin inside the top 10. Number 9, Adam Thielen. I already hyped up Justin Jefferson. I like Adam Thielen, almost as much. He comes in at number 9. Adam Thielen seems to get more end zone targets, so there is a bit more upside there. But I feel like Justin Jefferson has kind of established himself as the best option in the receiving game for this team. I mean, that's just my opinion. You can disagree if you like. I don't really care. That's why I have Adam Thielen at number 9, 3 spots below Justin Jefferson. They're both great. They're both great options this week. Number 10, Tyler Lockett versus the Jets. Like DK Metcalf, they're both going to go off against the Jets. Number 11, I got A.J. Brown at Jacksonville. A.J. Brown had a few big, massive drops last week against Cleveland. He could have had 2, maybe 3 touchdowns if he didn't have those drops. The upside is there. However, I feel like he's just a little bit too banged up. I don't think he's playing at 100%. He's gotten hurt at the end of games lately. He's fighting through them. He's playing, but I think some of those tackles are, there's a lot of pain lingering for him. So I think that's kind of why he hasn't hit those massive, massive point totals that he could easily have and that we saw last season. I still have him at 11. He's a great play, but I'm just a little bit concerned that his health isn't 100%, and that might be hampering him. And that's why I have his teammate Corey Davis at number 14. I think either of them could finish the week as top 5 plays. I think Ryan Tannehill has a great matchup here against Jacksonville, and as long as it doesn't become Derrick Henry season too early, then I think both of them could have great plays. I think they're both must starts inside the top 15. At 12 and 13, I have Mike Evans and Allen Robinson. Target hogs. It seems like Mike Evans is Brady's favorite target. He seems to force him the ball a little bit more, especially in the red zone. His touchdown upside is much higher than Allen Robinson's. That's why I have him above. But Allen Robinson against Houston, not a bad matchup. Definitely doesn't scare you. And he'll get his targets. We'll just see if he actually catches them or if they're actually catchable. Number 15, Calvin Ridley. I would have him lower if Julio Jones decides to suit up, if he's healthy enough to suit up. But if he's the number 1 option, he always gets targets. This just isn't necessarily a good matchup. The corners for the Chargers are pretty good. Number 16, Deontay Johnson at Buffalo. He should probably get the majority of Tre'Davious White coverage. So I still like him the most, but a bit tempering those expectations for Deontay Johnson. This team still throws the ball as its first, second, and often third option. So he should get plenty of targets. Number 17, Michael Thomas at Philadelphia. It feels strange to have him this low, but you can't really feel good about having him higher. And I think he popped up on the injury report yet again today. So I hope Michael Thomas gets healthy. I hope next season is much better. This season was obviously a disappointment. Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, and Brandin Cooks ran out the top 20. I won't really talk too much about them. Outside the top 20, I'll list them off and then go over a couple names that I want to highlight. Chase Claypool, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Jarvis Landry ran out the top 25, and then 26, Deebo Samuel, 27, Cole Beasley, 28, Juju Smith-Schuster, 29, DJ Chark, and 30, Brandon Ayuk. None of these matchups are good except for DJ Chark's, but obviously DJ Chark has Mike Glennon throwing him the ball, so can't get too excited there. I'm a little bit worried about guys like Jarvis Landry, Deebo Samuel, guys you may have picked up very recently off the waiver wire. If you're desperate, if you feel like you don't really have a better option, obviously, I think they're worth starting, but in my eyes, they're really just flex options because they've got bad matchups, and you obviously weren't relying on them to get here if you recently picked them up, and you it kind of feels more appropriate to play the studs and the players that got you there. You'd feel a little bit better if you lost starting your best players rather than benching them and taking a shot on guys that you never started all season long, like Jarvis or Deebo. Um, the best matchups this week are for the already best plays at wide receiver. It seems like this is a week where if you have a top 15 options, that is probably going to be the difference maker in terms of you winning the week, at least at wide receiver. All of the best matchups are for the best options. It's very top. I think it's going to be very top heavy this week, and I have a hard time suggesting that you rely on streamers at the wide receiver position if you're going to play daily fantasy football or even in your playoff matchup. Some guys like Nelson Agholor, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman Jr., and Tee Higgins all have good matchups, and I wouldn't be surprised if they popped off a big game, but they definitely carry too much risk for me to trust them in my playoff roster. So good luck to you. Good luck to you in the playoffs, making your start-sit decisions. Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you so much. Again, my name's Adam Riancho. This is Nice and Blunt. Please don't hesitate to send me a message through Instagram. My page is Nice and Blunt on Instagram, and hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell if you'd like more fantasy football content to come to you. And thank you again. Have a great day.